Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me this afternoon. To many people, this feels like kind of a non-event, with the exception of the isolation and schools and businesses closed. But of course, if you happen to be one of those people that is not working because your business has closed and you're at home homeschooling your children and going without a paycheck, this is a much different situation and painful experience to go through. So far, we have had only one documented case of COVID-19 in Prineville. We will have more over the next couple of weeks. The groundswell of cases is moving this direction, and so without a doubt, in the next couple of weeks, we will have more cases in Prineville. But through the self-isolation, though it will not cure the disease, it will help buy time for the reduction of the impact on the local hospitals, and will buy us time so that a medical cure can be identified and developed for us to treat us when we come down with it in the future. Hopefully we won't, but many of us will. And hopefully during that time, they will also develop a vaccine to protect us. After the last presentation, I received a phone call on my answering machine from a woman who unfortunately did not identify herself. And her concern was about price gouging on groceries. And I have found that not to be the case. I took my tablet and I went down to the local grocery stores. I went to all three primary stores in Prineville, and I checked the price of eggs and bread and milk. Eggs were the issue that was a complaint. And while the prices are a little bit higher on eggs, they basically are the same for the other products. So thank you to the grocery stores who have done their job in keeping costs to a minimum. I did speak with one store clerk who said that their prices from the wholesale level have gone up a fair amount over the last couple of weeks, but they're doing their best to keep their prices to the public as low as possible. And so again, thank you to the grocery stores for the work you're doing in keeping the products available for us. I would like to congratulate Kim Daniels and the Chamber of Commerce and the work they are doing on behalf of the local businesses and helping them with funding to survive this pandemic. They are helping with the SBA funds and the state dollars that are available. And to Brian Iverson, who has been very active with the Chamber of Commerce and the downtown businesses in assisting them in getting the small SBA grants, as well as the city has identified one staff member whose specialty is to work with the local businesses to help them work their way through the massive paperwork necessary to qualify for some of those loans. Facebook, thank you. Facebook stepped up to the plate and helped the kids with Chromebooks and technology so that they could stay on track with their education. And you have come back again, and thank you. This time you have come back with grants to help the local businesses. And I appreciate that. You have our backs. And you also worked with the Central Oregonian to provide local advertising, free local advertising for the local businesses. So thank you, Facebook, and thank you, Central Oregonian. A thanks goes out to our first responders, to the nurses, the pharmacists, and the police officers who are facing this pandemic head on to protect us. Be sure to thank them for their willingness to put their health on the line to work on our behalf and protect us from this virus. And thank you to a special group of folks, the folks who stock our grocery store shelves and keep our food available in a sanitary fashion. We appreciate the work you do. And then a thanks to the folks that have made masks for the hospitals. I put out a request for masks to be made for the hospitals and the first responders, and you have done a wonderful job. I spoke with Todd Shields this last week, and he's told me that all of the masks that are made and donated in Prineville are being kept in Crook County to be used by the people in Crook County. So thank you to the face mask users and face mask producers. Thank you. The city construction projects continue as they have been, with, of course, social distancing required. Masks are being worn by the city staff anytime there is a risk of close proximity of workers with the public or workers with workers. We have a very limited window, narrow window of time to get these projects completed for the water needs and the public safety buildings. These are necessary projects for the public good. Last Tuesday, we had a special city council meeting with 2 agenda items. And the first item was to be able to extend the emergency declaration because it was scheduled to expire on the 12th of April, day after tomorrow. And we would not have had an opportunity to extend that emergency declaration. We did so at the special council meeting, and the declaration is now extended to the end of the month, to April 30th. And we'll have another meeting prior to that, see if there's a necessity in extending the emergency declaration further. Also on the agenda, we had an opportunity to get a much lower interest rate loan on the construction of the new public safety building. And by qualifying for that loan, we can literally save hundreds of thousands of dollars for the city, and which translates to you, the taxpayer. So we are going to be able to save $200,000 to $300,000 on that loan by qualifying for the lower interest rate. And because the window of opportunity to apply for that particular loan was so narrow, we had to scoot and get the work done quickly. That council meeting was live streamed, as our other council meetings will continue to be for the duration of this pandemic, and possibly longer if it turns out to be the case. Today with me, I would like to introduce one of the city's oldest departments and how COVID is impacting the City of Prineville Railway. So with me today is Matt Wiederholt, the General Manager of the Railway. Hi, Matt. Tell us a little bit about the City of Prineville Railway and its operation.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor. Exactly. Every now and then I run around town here, and I run into people, and they don't even know we have a railroad, let alone one that still operates. So we do have a railroad. It is owned and operated by the City of Prineville, and it has been since 1918. So we operate under the umbrella as an enterprise fund, and as that enterprise fund, we're expected to generate revenues and pay our way. So the railway does not take tax money or rely on taxes to operate. We're a standalone entity. The railway, again, is over 100 years old. We've seen some good times and some bad times with the lumber industry. I'm happy today to be able to report that we are turning positive numbers. We're operationally sustainable now and have been for about 6 years. The railway, as we generate revenue, we use it to fund repair projects, our locomotives, but we also use that revenue to create a slush fund. And I'm proud to say today that our slush fund is now over $1 million. In 2014, it was getting kind of dangerously low, as you know. So with the railway, we generally make our money on a few different ways. We pull revenue, railroad cars for revenue. We also repair cars for revenue, and we store cars for private businesses that own rail cars that no longer need them. We can put them on some of our old tracks that go up to the mills that are no longer in service, and we can charge a lease fee. underneath the umbrella of the railway, we also have the Prineville Freight Depot and the Prineville Bulk Facility, which is a warehousing facility, and we utilize the warehousing for different kinds of product transfer, so from rail to truck or truck to rail, and we also store products for people. Today, we have just roughly around 50 to 51 people utilizing the railway in one capacity or another, whether we direct serve them and put the rail car right at their industry, or they utilize the warehouses to pick up their goods. So
it sounds like the railway has brought jobs to Prineville and some companies that otherwise wouldn't be here. Can you tell us about that? Oh, and by the way, I refer to that as a reserve fund rather than a slush fund.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the railway is a great economic tool, and it's one more tool for the city or the county to use to entice businesses into the area. If you're over 500 miles, the cost per ton of goods shipped drastically reduces when you ship it by rail. So utilizing the railway as an economic tool to bring businesses and community, they've had a lot of success in the past decade with businesses like Superior Carriers. They were looking at other states. All these businesses were looking at other states I'm going to name, and then we were able to entice them into Prineville because of the railway. So we have Superior Carriers, McCall Oil and Chemical, asphalt oil, Envirotech services. They do that wonderful de-icer that everybody seems to like, but we have that right on our line, and they import it. And then Fontana Wood Products is also on our line, and that's a Berkshire Hathaway company that employs a significant amount of people. If it wasn't for the rail line, those companies would not be in our community creating jobs and employment. Recently, in the last week, we signed a lease with a pipe manufacturer called Crowell USA, and they're here specifically for the rail line. All of their raw products, the little plastic pellets that they use for their pipe manufacturing, has to come by rail. So they had to have a spot that was rail accessible, and Prineville's that spot.
Good. I understand the Superior Freight is also a Berkshire Hathaway company as well.
It is now, yes.
Okay.
They just merged with another company.
Okay. So has COVID-19 impacted the railway and the customers it serves?
Absolutely. So from our daily operations at the railway, of course, we're social distancing. So as people see us out there operating, you'll notice that we're only have one man in the locomotive. One dedicated person's running the locomotive right now, and the conductors or the support staff is driving. So we're separating that way. And talking with the customer and our customer base, I think it's affected just about everybody in one aspect or another. With slowdowns, we're still considered, the railroad's still considered a crucial. So we still are operating daily, but we're starting to see a very significant decline in rail traffic. When the social distancing started for about the first week and a half, it was really slow, and I think everybody kind of settled in. But I'm getting reports of 40, 50, even as much as 60% decline in some of the manufacturers that we're working with here.
So what impact does traffic slowing down have to rail service on a larger scale?
So the numbers for the national railroads came out this week, and the numbers were below the lowest level in the 2008 recession. So from a national scale, we're seeing a greater decline than we saw in the big recession in 07, 8, 9. From us locally, we're lucky because we're not just pulling freight. We're diversified. So although I'm seeing a decline in freight, which is expected, What we're seeing is an uptick in that car storage that I talked about. We're seeing as the economy slows down, the rail cars are not needed on the national level, so they're coming in and we're storing those. What I've also seen through the warehouses is where companies were using more cross-docking, so going from one mode to another, train to truck quickly. They've bought inventory. There's a lot of companies that are nervous of what overseas inventory might do. And so we're starting more long-term warehousing. In the last week, companies are starting to set down a lot more materials in our warehouse for long-term storage. Just the only business that we on our line that we haven't seen take any kind of hit yet is the asphalt business. It seems to be the only one that hasn't taken a dip, but everybody else has definitely taken a dip on our line.
Thank you. So once the COVID-19 is behind us and things are back to normal, as whatever normal will be, what's next for the railway?
Well, when before this started, we were working with 3 different companies that were looking at expansion. 2 of them, and I can't talk too much about it right yet, but 2 of them are physical expansions, and one of them was just an expansion with chemicals, chemical products that they were looking at importing. And that's all been postponed. So we hope to, as this gets back to normal, get back there to that and revisit those expansion needs for companies. This year, we started working in November. We had a wonderful opportunity with the Army National Guard. We were going to move 79 pieces of military equipment on 47 rail cars to Yuma, California for a training exercise. So it was the Redmond Guard. And we were actually going to load the cars over Easter weekend this weekend. And 2 weeks ago, that training was canceled. And it's a big training exercise they have every year. 9 states, National Guards from 9 states go to that training exercise. And we were going to send them down there on rail, and we would get them back at the end of May. So hopefully when this is all over with next year, as the training exercises come, I believe they'll think of us. And I sure hope they do, because that would have been a great project. So from an operations standpoint, the railroad works very tight with an advisory committee. So we have a rail committee, and real quick, of course, Mayor Effelman, Steve Forster, our city manager, but we have Mike Irvin, Jerry Evans, and Larry Gerke on this rail committee, and they're an advisory committee. So as we move forward, we'd like to get back into the advisory committee and look what the expansion and the needs are for the railroad. We've had a lot of luck filling up some of the assets that we've had, and so what direction do we want to move moving forward? So hopefully, as this all gets put to rest, that we'll be able to get that rail committee back in here and start discussing, if there's some opportunities that we want to move forward, and whether it be property purchase or just which direction we want to go from an operations standpoint.
Matt, thank you very much. Thank you for your time and the work that you're doing with the railroad.
Absolutely.
In closing this afternoon, I again plead with you to stay self-isolated as much as possible. The self-isolation will slow down the expansion of the virus in the region. And wash your hands frequently, and wash your hands frequently, and wash your hands frequently. And stay healthy and stay safe. And thank you for joining us.